Okay, chapter 9, one sample hypothesis test. So of course there's a two sample hypothesis test, but yeah, we will, since this is the first time we look at the hypothesis test, so we will use a one sample. So hypothesis testing is used to, in science and business, test some assumption. So can we tell something is greater than something or smaller than something, but can we have a statistically significant evidence to say this is true or not? So hypothesis test is that we will build up the hypothesis test. So we want to find out, is it bigger than this one or not? And then that's what we call the hypothesis. And then we select the sample and take a look at the sample, and then we can make a conclusion. This is greater than this one, or this is not greater than this one, or this is smaller than this one, or is it same or different? So that is what we call this hypothesis testing. Of course, we cannot tell 100% this is true, this is false. We cannot tell, but we can just make a conclusion under some statistical significance. So hypothesis testing, there's some question, right, and then some assumption, and the theory. And now we collected some evidence, so that's actually the sampling. And then we will check our theory is the true or not. Of course, again, we don't know is exactly the true or not, but we will use some statistical procedure. And then we can make a conclusion under some statistical statement. So you will see what kind of the conclusion we can make. So we will use a sample data. Before we collected the sample data, so we can create a hypothesis, and the hypothesis will be compared with the sample data, and then we will make a conclusion. So if the data, what we can find from the data is the inconsistent or the conflict with the hypothesis, then hypothesis will be rejected. Or we can, if it's not inconsistent enough, then we will fail the rejecting the hypothesis. So we will never tell accepting or rejecting. We will say rejecting or fail to reject. So we will see what I'm talking about. So hypothesis testing is trying to make some statistical conclusion. So hypothesis testing is once you got an idea and then you created a hypothesis, right? And then you gather the data and then find the test statistics and make a decision, which is to make a conclusion, and you revise data, and then you go back to the first step. So hypothesis testing is a lot of the business manager also will face the hypothesis testing. So if somebody said, you know, doing the TV commercial will boost up our sales, is it true? Is it really we sell more? Our sales is boosted by the TV commercial. Can we have the statistical evidence? So that kind of the thing we will see. The business manager need to know what is the hypothesis testing, what's going on. Even though you will forget about all the details here, but you should know what's going on here, what we are trying to do, and what it means. What is the p-value, and we fail to reject, and what those word means. So first, state the hypothesis. So you have to state the hypothesis. Null hypothesis is before we collect the data, or sometimes what you're trying to prove, this is the actually what you are trying to prove. Okay, so if we don't have enough strong enough evidence, we cannot say H1 alternative hypothesis is true. We will go back to the H0. So you can think about this is some kind of the trial. In the trial, if there is no strong enough evidence, then we will consider our defendant as innocent, right? So that does not mean we accept that this guy is innocent, but we can tell we don't have a strong enough evidence that conclude this defendant is the real culprit, right? So that's the innocent is the H or null hypothesis. So H1 will be the this defendant is the actual culprit. So to move H0 to H1, we will need a strong enough evidence. So even though if we don't have a strong enough evidence, that does not mean we are accepting H0, but we cannot move from H0 to H1. So that is pretty similar to the trial system. I'm strongly suspect that our dependent is our culprit, but if we don't have a strong enough evidence, then we have to release him, right? So that does not mean our defendant is innocent is true. We don't know it's true, but I'm still the suspect. However, we don't have unless we have a strong enough evidence, we cannot move to the alternative hypothesis. That's the relationship with the null hypothesis and alternative hypothesis. We want to have a strong evidence, then we can move to the alternative hypothesis. But if it does not, then we cannot move from null to alternative. But that does not mean we accept the null hypothesis. That's why the result will be reject null hypothesis or fail to reject null hypothesis. We never say we are accepting null hypothesis. So these two statements we call the hypothesis because the truth is unknown, so we don't know which one is correct. And the effort will be made to reject the null hypothesis. So our evidence, we collected evidence trying to reject the null hypothesis, but result will be either reject or fail to reject. And this is not the same as accept. Okay. So state the hypothesis H0, H null hypothesis must be stated in the precise way so that it can be tested against the empirical evidence. So you might not really expect to reject it, but we tried anyway. We try to reject. If we reject the null hypothesis, then we conclude that the null hypothesis is the case. But H0, null hypothesis, is the status quo, which means it's current state of affair. And the H1 is sometimes it's called the action alternative, because action may be required if we reject the null hypothesis. So if we fail to reject the null hypothesis, then maybe most of the case we don't do anything. Criminal trial is exactly the easy case you can consider. The null hypothesis is the defendant is the innocent, and the alternative hypothesis is the defendant is guilty. So even though you are really suspicious about the dependent is guilty, but if we don't have a strong enough evidence to move here to here to reject H0, we need a strong evidence. Right? So if we don't have enough strong enough evidence, then we cannot say defendant is guilty. But that does not mean we are accepting the defendant is innocent. Okay. So drug testing. When we do the new drug testing, so null hypothesis is this is the example, the no banded substances was used and then banded substance was used. So if you are looking for the evidence, if there is a banded substance was used, then we can say, alternative hypothesis is true. But if you don't have strong enough evidence, then you cannot say that. We fail to reject the null hypothesis. And once we collected the evidence, which is the sample, before that to do that, so we have to find out how evidence will be used. For example, our legal system, the evidence presented by the prosecutor must convince a jury beyond the reasonable doubt. So this is a kind of the critical point that the defendant is not innocent. So we will see that our evidence is beyond the point, go over this critical point or not. If it's not above the critical point, then we say this is not strong enough. And then we collected the data and then compare to the critical point, and then we can say this is strong enough or this is not strong enough, and we will make a decision. Once we make a decision, usually for the alternative hypothesis is true, then we have to do some action. Right? So, in like a criminal trial, the defendant, if the evidence shows the defendant is not innocent, then we have to do some kind of punishment. That is the follow by the decision. So can a null hypothesis be proved? No, we cannot say. Again, we are trying to collect the evidence that the alternative hypothesis is true. But if you fail, then we cannot. We only fail to reject. So again, this is not the same as accept. So we are not accepting null hypothesis. We just trying to reject the null hypothesis, and maybe you fail. You don't have enough evidence. So if you fail to reject the null hypothesis, the same hypothesis may be retested. This is how the scientific inquiry works. So that's how it works. That does not mean we prove the null hypothesis is true.